Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today we cover another species of planar dragons. Hailing from the twin paradises of Bytopia, the protectors of good and the bane of all evil creatures that have the misfortune of crossing paths with them, the Adamantine dragon. Adamantine dragons come from the plane of Bytopia, a lawful good and neutral good outer plane, home to many intelligent animals, plant life, gnomes, and a majority of the gnomish pantheon. Acting as the protectors of the twin paradises, adamantine dragons are often patrolling the skies, looking for invaders that seek to disturb the good of their home plane. Adamantine dragons have small bodies in comparison to their disproportionately long claws, arms, tails, and wings. They have a smooth hide that gleams like a silvery metal coated with diamond dust. This is where they get their name from, as they look like they are covered in adamantine, and their claws, fangs, and tail are treated like adamantine weapons. The horns on their head sweep backwards to form a radiant crown-like crest. They often live in magnificent castles that they make near one of the many gnomish towns they have sworn to protect. So adamantine dragons, due to their hue and their neutral good alignment, seem to be more like a metallic dragon from the outer planes. Quoting Dragon Magazine issue 321, quote, "Adamantine dragons are widely regarded as exemplars of basic goodness. They are helpful to a fault, never failing to aid good beings in times of need." End quote. In combat, the adamantine dragons will end combat as quickly as possible to keep the inhabitants of the plains safe from danger. They use their paralyzing breath and quickly proceed to use one of my all-time favorite abilities, Sunder. Sunder allows them to attack and damage not the enemies, but the armor, weapons, and equipment of the creatures they are fighting, making it so the longer the fight goes on, the weaker their opponents will be. I will touch on that ability later when we get to the stat block. Adamantine dragons have no compassion for evil creatures. If they are sure they cannot kill the threat, they will use one of their many spells to banish the creature from Bytopia. Despite all of their abilities to travel the planes and send other creatures away, they often stick to their home plane in an attempt to make sure it's always safe. That's pretty much all we have for the Adamantine Dragon, so now we're going to look at the stats I made for 5th edition. Because I don't want this video to run too long, I'll just cover the Ancient Adamantine Dragon and show you everything it has at its strongest form. But I will leave a link to the stat blocks for Wormling through Ancient in the description. Ancient Adamantine Dragon. Gargantuan Dragon, neutral good. Has an armor class of 21, that's natural armor. Has 565 hit points, or 29 d20 plus 261. Has a on-foot speed of 40 feet, flying speed of 80 feet, and a swim speed of 30 feet. For ability scores, it has a 30 strength, 12 dexterity, 29 constitution, 17 intelligence, 19 wisdom, and 17 charisma. It has proficiency in its dexterity, constitution, wisdom, and charisma saves. It has expertise in perception and proficiency in stealth. It is immune to fire damage. It has 60 feet of blind sense, 120 feet of dark vision, like most other dragons do, and a passive perception of 28. For languages, it speaks Celestial, Draconic, and Gnomish, so it might be a little harder to communicate with the dragon if you don't know any of those languages, because unlike most other dragons, it doesn't speak Common. It has a challenge rating of 22, just putting it slightly below some of the higher metallic dragons, despite the fact that looking at the other stat blocks, if you go check them out, it starts at the level or above the level of the Gold Dragon, one of the probably the strongest dragon we have in 5th edition, apart from named dragons, of course. But it does gradually, as it gets older, it becomes slightly less strong comparatively, but still a very challenging threat. For abilities, it has its Adamantine Touch, so the dragon's natural weapons are adamantine for the purposes of overcoming resistances, immunities, or just striking in general. Increased damage. This is something that they had in earlier editions as well, just like their Adamantine Touch, and I enjoyed it, is Due to their oversized limbs and natural weapons, the dragon's weapon attacks deal damage 1 damage die greater than a dragon normally would, which is already changed in the attacks already. So, for instance, I'll get to it, but just touching on it now, most dragons, their bite attack does either 1d10 or 2d10 damage. This, for the Adamantine dragon, it does d12s instead. Claw, which would be a d6, is d8. Tail, which would be d8, is d10. So it just goes up one dice size. And next ability, my favorite one, is Sunder. Whenever the dragon makes a melee attack with its natural weapons, it can choose to target a creature's armor, shield, or weapon instead, determining the armor's appropriate AC and hit points with the statistics for objects portion of the Dungeon Master's Guide. Each successful strike makes armor or weapons suffer a -1 penalty to damage or armor class. If the penalty drops to a -5, any non-magical item is immediately broken. If the target item is magical, the creature wielding or wearing it loses any bonus to armor class, and a weapon is considered improvised until repaired. So I have tweaked this slightly, because one thing that slightly frustrates me with Dungeons and Dragons is most of the time when you do damage to gear or items, they have to be non-magical specifically. And that's great, but the moment the party has any type of +1 weapon, those monsters just get a giant debuff, or those effects get a giant debuff because they don't affect as much. So I've made it so a non-magical item would be completely broken. A magical item you need to repair it, but you still don't have to buy a completely new item. As for explaining the negatives to armor class and the improvised weapon, basically if you have a magic plate mail on, you will receive no bonus to AC from it if it gets to that -5 penalty, and instead it will be like you're wearing no armor at all. So your AC will be 10 plus your dexterity, of course. And improvised weapons are 1d4 plus strength modifier. They tend to be, and most characters don't have proficiency in a improvised weapon. So it will definitely require them to switch out their weapons quick. If it's their armor, that takes a long time to don or doff. So yeah, it might be a little bit more challenging to the party, but they shouldn't fight this thing unless they're evil. And if they're evil, they're going to learn the hard way. For innate spellcasting, it's charisma based, of course, as most innate spellcasting is. It has a save DC of 18, a +10 to hit with spell attacks, and it can cast the following spells requiring no material components: 3 times per day, Mirror Image, Dimension Door, Dispel Evil and Good, and Banishment. Once per day each, Antipathy/Sympathy, or Power Word Stun. There's one other spell-like ability that they are given in 3.5, but that is at the age category of Great Worm. I have another video on that. Go check it out if you want, seeing how to upgrade dragons from from Ancient to Great Worm, because I love older dragons. They're really cool. But at Great Worm status, they get the spell Reverse Gravity, which, interesting spell, especially really good in Bytopia, because it's basically like a sandwich layer. There's one layer below, one layer above that both have their distinctive gravities, and there's just a little separating line in between them. It's pretty cool. For actions, the Adamantine dragon can use its Frightful Presence and then make 3 attacks with its multi-attack, of course. 1 with its bite, 2 with its claws. Frightful Presence, 120 feet around the dragon, DC 24 Wisdom save, or they become frightened for a minute, just like most other Frightful Presences. And of course, at the end of each creature's turn, it can repeat the saving throw and end the effect on a success. Bite has a +17 to hit, reach of 15 feet, and does 2d12 plus 10 piercing damage, or 23 on average. For its claw attack, it's a +17 hit, and I also gave it a reach of 15 feet due to its extra long limbs. One target, of course, 19 damage, or 2d8 plus 10. It's slashing damage. Tail attack, +17 to hit, reach of 20 feet. One target, and it does 21, or 2d10 plus 10 bludgeoning damage. Breath weapons, like other metallic dragons, it has 2 breath weapons. It has its Fire Breath, which it exhales a 120-foot line that is 5 feet wide. Each creature in the line must make a DC 24 Dexterity saving throw. taking 59 or 13d8 fire damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. Not a lot of damage, but it's going to tend not to use its breath weapon as much as its other abilities, which it favors. Like its next breath weapon, it's paralyzing breath. A dragon exhales gas in, or the dragon exhales gas in a 90-foot cone. Each creature in the area must succeed on a DC 24 Constitution saving throw or be paralyzed for 1 minute. A creature can repeat this saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. So as long as they're able to properly get by this save, or maybe they just have the luck of the dice, or maybe they have someone who can assist them and get rid of the paralysis, ending the effect, uh, anyone who's fighting this dragon should be able to get out of that pretty easily. If not, a lot of their gear is going to have negatives to it by the time they get out, because, like I said earlier, they prefer to use their breath weapon and then start striking the armor. And like most other dragons, they have their change shape ability, or most metallics, where the dragon can magically polymorph into a humanoid or beast that has a challenge rating no higher than its own, or back into its true form as an action. It reverts to its true form if it dies. Any equipment it is wearing or carrying is absorbed or borne by the new form, the dragon's choice. In a new form, the dragon retains its alignment, hit points, hit dice, ability to speak, proficiencies, legendary resistances, layer actions, and intelligence, wisdom, and charisma scores, as well as the ability to use this action again. Its statistics and capabilities are otherwise replaced by those of the new form, except any class features or legendary actions of that form. And speaking of legendary actions, the last thing the dragon has is legendary actions. The dragon can take 3 legendary actions, choosing from the options below. Only 1 legendary action option can be used at a time, and only at the end of another creature's turn. The dragon regains all spent legendary actions at the start of its turn. Now, I gave it the normal legendary actions that most dragons have, which is its detect for a wisdom or perception check, its tail attack for a tail attack, or its wing attack, which I increased the range on this to 15 feet because extra long wings, as I've described earlier. But the one thing that I changed or added is its Sundering Strike. So as a legendary action, it is able to make 1 strike specifically against a weapon, armor, or a shield, or any type of equipment. I made sure to specify that because otherwise it's just going to make up to 6 attacks per round, and that can be very deadly. But this kind of forces other dungeon masters to play the dragon a little bit smarter, as now it can attack the weapons in between its turn, so then it can slowly wither away at its enemies and just make the combat just a little bit more interesting. And that is all I have for the Adamantine dragon. If you liked this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this. If you have any suggestions for other monsters you'd like to see brought to 5th edition, please let me know in the comments. Before I leave, I'd just like to mention that I am running polls for which planar dragon you would like me to stat out next over on my Instagram, Nick the DM. But thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!